I've spent the last 15 years working in sort of big broadcasts, predominantly for sport, making everything from Match of the Day to Wimbledon to Ashes series and pretty much every sport you can think of in between. If you'd have told me as a sports mad, a 12-year-old, that I'd make a career out of sitting pitchside, watching sport, I would have blown my mind.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the Yorkshire Business Podcast. Today, I have got an absolutely incredible guest for you. I'm speaking to Jack. Jack is the Managing Director of Tell Media. Tell Media deliver cutting-edge technical production services and broadcasting services too. They work across a wide variety of sectors providing these services, right from corporate through to global sports broadcasting and production. On a personal level, it was such an insightful and enjoyable conversation speaking to Jack. They're not just cutting edge about what they do, they are real leaders and have a visionary outlook when it comes to how they nurture people and the talent pipeline right here from their base in York. I'm Chloe, I'm the founder of OneSource HR, and I'm the host of the Yorkshire Business Podcast.
My name's Jack Nicklin. I'm Managing Director of a company called Tell Media. I've spent the last 15 years working in sort of big broadcasts, live streaming, social media, digital production, predominantly for sport. So big broadcasters, BBC, big American companies, Channel 4, making everything from Match of the Day to Wimbledon to Ashes series and pretty much every sport you can think of in between. And then recently moved into a company not too far away. So we're based up in York, doing the same thing, but sort of starting our own thing from almost from scratch. We're a couple of years old.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and when I first heard about the business, I was just shocked really to find out that it was in York, because I think when you think about what you guys do, that to me has always felt like really London-centric or, in more recent times, Manchester-focused and based. But I wasn't really aware of anybody in Yorkshire doing what you do.
No, and I think that's one of the things that was a real pull to me to join and to try and push it forward up here. I was really lucky. I grew up in Lancashire, but I was in Salford just as BBC moved to Media City. So started in there and was quite lucky to not have to go down to London, which is what most people do. For most people, it's sofa surfing in London, or it certainly was when I was breaking through and trying to break your way into the industry down there. And it's traditionally been a very, very London-centric business, and it still is, maybe slightly outside of the M25 now, but it's. And there's not too much up here. Leeds is starting to become quite a big digital hub with people like Channel 4 moving there and a lot of tech companies there. But what we do is quite unique, certainly in this area, and I think for us, it's a really great selling point for us, for great young or experienced talent. The fact you don't have to drive to Manchester or down to London to do the job you want to do is hopefully something that puts us in good stead, attracting sort of great people to stay in and around Yorkshire and work in TV, and especially in live sport.
So, yeah, tell us a bit more about what Tell Media actually do then, because I think I know, but the listeners don't.
So Tell Media is a live production company. So we specialise in live sport coverage. We do that in a few ways. We do live broadcasting and sort of digital broadcasting, so filming matches, putting cameras around stadium, picking which camera angles you see and sending them out to the world. We do a lot of distribution of things like that as well, so digital streams out from TV channels onto digital platforms. And also a lot of sort of in-stadium production, which you'll see on the big screen in a stadium, whether that's stats and graphics or fan cams and things like that. We film things like that within the stadium and publish it obviously straight onto there. We do that here in the UK, we've also just expanded into Kuwait in the Middle East and Malaysia and Southeast Asia into Kuala Lumpur, where we do quite a lot of the sort of big screen infotainment graphic work in all of those stadiums. So Brunei, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, we're working on sort of big screens in sports stadiums there. And all of it is utilising tech and engineering that we base at our warehouse, which is just north of York, which has got all our kits and cameras in. So we are building and developing everything there and then shipping it out to the world and sort of showing British engineering and British design in this space, which is a really high standard and great to be able to deliver that project from here into the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, like roots in Yorkshire, but actually it's a globally operating and globally reaching business. Yeah. And, sports is global, isn't it? It's something that brings us as humanity together a lot.
And I think that was one of the things that first attracted me into sport. I started at BBC Sport and I travelled around the world to Rio for Olympics, to Italy for Six Nations, and as Tell we've been to pretty much most of the countries I hadn't managed to tick off with the big organisations. We do underage World Cups and tournaments like that, and it's travelled to all kinds of places in South America, in Southeast Asia, everywhere you go. Sport's a really easy thing to hook into the culture of, and you can start a conversation with most people that have got a passing interest in sport and find some common ground or something to talk about. So, and then those sort of big corner piece events where everyone comes together, whether to watch it around a TV or 100,000 people in a stadium sat and having that big moment together. It's a real exciting, interesting space to be in. That buzz and that atmosphere is not like anything else I've seen in too many places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet like from a sort of team management and motivation perspective, although it's really different, right? So a lot of my career has been spent in manufacturing and engineering, and what I find is there's a real sense of pride about the work because they get to see a finished product, and that's very different to what we might see in an environment like retail, for example. You could be scanning somebody's groceries, but you don't get to go home and see the meal that they make with those groceries. And I guess it's similar with what you do, where everybody feels connected to that final production.
Yeah, and it's a really nice instant kind of gratification, especially if you're doing one of the sort of freelancer crew jobs on site where you're holding a camera or a microphone, or you're directing the match, picking the cameras, or whatever role you might be doing. You immediately see your product going out, or you might do social media and pre-recorded videos that might go out a little bit later. In the case of social media, that's pretty instant now anyway, but you sort of immediately get to see that recognition. People are always watching what you're doing live wherever they are in the world. The few times I've accidentally popped up on TV, your phone instantly starts buzzing, and sort of you realise how many people at home are watching the thing you're working on and have noticed the back of your head when you're on for half a second when you're not supposed to be. And it is incredible how many people are sort of tapped into that. And often whenever my wife jokes, she's an accountant, but whenever people ask us, we meet people and they ask what we do, she's always like, oh, I'm an accountant, but just talk to him. And you sort of tap straight into sport, and it's interesting, and people like, talking about the travel or the famous people you get to work with, or the interesting things you do. So it's not the kind of job you can complain about to your mates in the pub.
No, I bet. You're like, oh, we're just interviewing.
And they were really hard work today. And they're like, what? You met who? And it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, I've just been lifting wheelbarrows full of broken up concrete all day, but tell me more about how hard it is.
Yeah, about how I just see parking compounds under stadiums and hotels. But it's a really hard job. It's a lot of hard work. It's long hours. It's a lot of pressure, and it's really high profile stuff. And it's a tough thing, but it's a really, really rewarding industry if you can break into it. I've had a lovely time working in it for the last 15 years, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It's one of those nice jobs when people ask what you do. If you didn't do that, and it's like, oh, I've no idea.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do something else?
Yeah. You've not really had the want to sit and dream about doing something else.
No, and for me, who's a sports fan, you're pitch side are moments that people would pay a fortune to, and do pay a fortune to be pitch side at. You're there when Usain Bolt's winning a gold medal, or Andy Murray's winning Wimbledon, or the World Cup finals, Champions League finals, and things like that. And you do realise, sometimes you look around and you're like, oh yeah, this is quite lucky.
I bet. No, that's really awesome. So, given that it can be, as we've spoken about, maybe London-centric or Manchester-centric, how did you actually identify York as being a good place to launch?
Yeah, so the company launched just before me, and launched by a guy called Tom Ellis, who was a EVS op, which is a technical role within TV, who had connections and ties here, and just sort of naturally settled into here. It launched during COVID, in a bit of a boom of sort of corporate streaming, which we still do quite a bit of, but boomed up with a load of, they're called vMix ops, who press the buttons and pick which cameras you're using. And the company kind of grew out of that and went through a real boom cycle, almost coincidentally in York, because everyone was forced to be at home.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is where I am at the moment, so this is where we need to have our business. And all those great reasons as well around it being in Yorkshire, and things that we lean into as our values about, all the cliches about being approachable and easy to talk to. And, we don't try and gatekeep any of the knowledge, and want to be, great value, easy to work with. And I think being in York, for me, that makes it an easy selling point, because you're like, yeah, we're from Yorkshire, we're a York company, and people kind of get it. And so it grew out of that, and then pivoted in the last few years and to concentrate a bit more on sport. And then I joined a few months ago to really hone in on that. But yeah, it almost, I guess, that COVID thing that accelerated so many things, and the working from home and the being able to be anywhere. And at that same time, the entry point for what we do and the technology that we use became much more prevalent, and the price point started dropping, and it became more accessible for more people to do. And it's kind of shifting away from those natural, you have to go and work at TV Centre at BBC in the middle of London to do this job, because you can jump on a computer anywhere and do it, or you can do things in the cloud that you couldn't dream of 10 years ago. And I often think it with people coming through, you sort of get your formal training 10, 20 years ago. Now, you get 20-year-olds turn up who've got 10 years experience of setting up their own YouTube live streams and doing their own channels. And there's a lot of that self-taught thing, which is really exciting for being up here, because you can tap into that. And the broadcast industry and sport is going through a big flux at the moment, where the sort of media rights deals are dropping. There's sort of big news about various things falling through all over the world, and governing bodies starting to take control. And the industry's always been really top down. It's like, what's the best camera we can possibly get at the world? And then over time that filters down into these smaller productions. And now it's like, oh, look what this person's doing with their phone on YouTube. That's cool. How do we incorporate that into the big broadcasts? So we're trying to sort of capitalize on that wave of that, and those people who've got those skills, who are everywhere in the world now. You don't need to be based in London to be able to do that. And I think the world's changed so much, in particular in the last 5 years, off the back of COVID, that there's no reason not to be in York, and there's no reason for people not to be looking at York as a place you'd like to build a business or build a career, whether that's in TV or anything else, right? The walls have kind of come down for us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully that continues to expand and grow. I mean, another sector that's been really London-centric is financial services. But now, actually, in Yorkshire, in Leeds, we've got one of the biggest and fastest growing hubs of financial services in the UK. And the FCA, the regulatory body for financial services businesses, they established their offices in Leeds in 2022. And by the end of this year, they'll have tripled their presence there. So it just goes to show that there can be a huge ripple effect when you've got a good business sort of setting a standard and creating opportunities for people to do something different.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting thing for us as an industry. Like you look around and it's very male, middle-aged, white, slightly upper class, because it's been so hard to break into. You
Yeah.
know, can you afford to go and live on a sofa in London and get paid more now? But back when I was doing it, like 14, 15 grand a year, and you can't. You know, when
Yeah.
I first started out, I was in Manchester, but I was working on children's TV in the day as a runner. And then I was running a cocktail bar at night, which was a really weird dual coexistence.
Yeah,
of
I bet.
like
Children's
children's
TV and then
TV
cocktails at night.
cocktail bar in the centre of
Yeah.
Manchester. And not, I was lucky that I could do that. Not everyone is able to work
Yeah.
80 hours a week on things to be able to break through into the industry. And that's suffered in terms of editorial ideas and different viewpoints and different types of content that we can make. So it's so much more, it's just a more interesting place to work if you've got different types of people everywhere.
Yeah.
And being able to do that now is really, really important. And like this becomes a job that's achievable for people. And so many people are doing it now anyway.
Yeah.
Because, you know, content creators or, you know, being able to do a podcast or being able to do like social video clips.
Yeah.
Like it's become a much more normalized workflow. And as I sort of said before, those content creators are coming into broadcast anyway, really heavily. Like everything's kind of merging into one big creative pot, which is really exciting. But new opportunities for people that they wouldn't have had 20 years ago, and that is bringing down a lot of the barriers to TV, which is great because you don't want to be a pale, male, stale industry, do you? Like, there's, you know.
Some people really do not like that saying. I have heard it a few times, and it does make me.
Yeah, but you know, it's any industry that can now be in you know, Leeds or Yorkshire. Or like York's such an attractive city to people. Like you've got all the history and all of those things, and it's a great place to live. It's a great place to work. Leeds is amazing as well. I've worked and lived there, and like you can feel that they're booming in those sort of technical and digital spaces. So it's a nice thing to be a part of.
And we've got lots of universities around us as well. So lots of you know, graduate talent and really creative and inspired and inspiring young people.
And we're tapping into that. We sponsor the National Student Television Awards because I'd like the best students in the country to want to come and work with us and like tap into some of that, you know, that enthusiasm and that experience and like new ways of looking at things that's a bit different or like new ways of addressing a different problems. Really exciting for us and being able to change the industry a little bit in that space. But yeah, we absolutely want to tap like so many people come to York, Leeds, Sheffield, Northumberland for university and then go down to London for work. And I mean, I went to university in Sheffield and ended up staying, but that's you want more opportunities for people to be able to do that because they're great places to live, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I honestly, from speaking to you, I have no doubt that you'll attract the best students because going back to what you were saying sort of 10 minutes ago around your values, it's really refreshing to hear somebody talk about their business's values and it not just sound like corporate jargon. Like you didn't want to say the words like trust, teamwork, integrity. And that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. You know, like if they're your values, they are so basic. They're the basics of human decency. If we're only asking for and rewarding basic, how can we expect as a business to achieve exceptional? Actually, we need to ask for something a little bit more that reflects us authentically or drives something more exceptional.
Yeah, and for me, it's sort of at the heart of those values. It's just caring.
Yeah.
Like, care about the people that I work with. I want them to be happy, want them to really enjoy what they do. We're really lucky to do what we do. And, like, how can... sometimes that's stressful and it's hard work, but it doesn't need to be as stressful and as high pressure as it is. And how can we not enjoy, like, going and filming sports matches? So I think, and then caring about people and looking after them and making sure that they're getting the best out of it. I think even if you look, I've never quite understood it, even if you look at it from a purely financial point of view, if you look after people and you care about them, people work harder and you get better results from it. And it just seems like such an obvious thing. But for me, that's why I wanted to come and be a managing director at a smaller company instead of one of the big organisations, because I think you can direct that a lot more when you're in a smaller place. Yeah. And it's much easier to foster that culture with 10, 20, 30 people than it is with 5,000.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the really exciting things to me about being at TEL and starting up with it. And yeah, just leaning into all those things that might be a bit cliched, but are great about Yorkshire, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And how many employees has the business got now, sort of locally or nationally and then globally?
Yeah, so we are 7 in the UK now. We're 4 in Malaysia, and we are 3 in Kuwait, but looking to grow and expand a little bit in all 3 of those regions and start. We're sort of we had a really great year last year, a bit of a consolidation year this year where we've sort of hopefully set ourselves up for growth off the back of it and start bringing a few more people in. But away from that, our business is so freelance heavy.
Yeah.
We hire so many camera operators, so many producers, so many technical people that have a freelance community. So I think through the first few months of this year, we'd hired like 150 freelancers and things like that. So we're quite a small team, but the volume of people that are sort of in our ecosystem is really, really high. Because that's the nice thing with what I do as well in the industry. You have sort of staff core jobs, but they're probably much fewer and further between than the volume of people who are technical and freelance and do day rates here and there and get to do a whole variety of different things all the time. So we constantly have like a revolving door of different peoples and different opinions and all this kind of stuff coming through, which is great.
You know, I'm really interested in the international expansion that you've done, because export-driven impact is really significant to our economy. And I was reading some stats recently that basically said if SMEs fully realise their international ambitions, it's estimated that the UK economy could gain 93.5 billion in revenue and support 1.9 million new jobs. How massive is that?
It's interesting. I've lived and worked in Australia, and I've worked all over the world, and I think we're very down on ourselves as a country.
Yeah.
You know, I think naturally everyone's a bit pessimistic, takes the mickey out of yourself a little bit, and sort of we don't shout about what we do in the way that, you know, America and other countries do. But British engineering, the BBC are so highly thought of abroad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you walk into places and you tell them that you work for the BBC, and it's amazing. Everyone thinks it's this incredible thing, and here we knock it down so much. But what we do in this country is so highly thought of around the world. And still for me, you know, our technical engineering is the gold standard of technical engineering in my industry. And why wouldn't we be exporting that more? You know, why wouldn't we go to these other places and be like, you know what, this is made in Britain. We've got great producers. We're developing things where you are, but it's backed in that excellence, and you're getting that level of excellence through. So for me, it's a no-brainer. There's different ways of working. There's different values and different beliefs around the world and different ways of approaching things. So you can take some of the best of that as well, and it's a two-way street as well, and it makes what we do here better.
As like an SME, are there any kind of support systems or processes you've put in place to make that kind of global expansion reachable or easier that you would advise other people to think carefully about or look at?
Our founder had met the people who he'd opened up with in Malaysia and in Kuwait, sort of those on-site connections, which, I mean, ultimately is networking. And lovely if you can afford to jump on a flight and go and network somewhere in the world. But I think if you can network, that's a great way. And getting in with those local connections and having that local experience that you already know and you already have a rapport with, but who's out there and has the industry knowledge there, who has the market knowledge there, who knows the customs and the way to do business, which is so different. It's really key. And then we've had great help from the DBT, great advice even, you know, on how to approach things, even just, you know, like a playbook on cultural norms in those places, which it's so useful to read through, you know. I think my first week here, we went for a meeting with the Kuwaiti Olympic Committee, and I did my sort of pitch.
Yeah.
Like first week in the new job, and then the sheikh got up and walked out, and I was like, oh, never mind, ruined that.
Yeah.
And then he came back sort of 10 minutes later with like a nice tray of coffees. And I was like, oh, didn't go that badly.
Yeah.
But, it's just getting used to that different way of working and different ways of communicating. But for us, we've so far only gone places where we already know people who are there.
Yeah.
And they've been able to help with that transition. So if you're lucky enough to find that is probably the best bit of advice we'd have.
Yeah. Well, as people say, business in itself is a contact sport. So you have to go out and meet people. It's actually about nurturing the network that you've already got. So someone that you perhaps worked with 10, 15 years ago, how you keep in contact with them, because you actually never know where they're going to end up and where you might cross paths again.
And really useful, it's a lot of the work, again, we're doing with students and things is an awareness piece that might pay off in 10, 20 years' time when those people are decision makers further down the line, because as people's careers diverge and move all over the place, who knows who's going to be a useful contact for you.
I work with a lot of businesses that are suffering with huge skills gaps, and you'll try and encourage them to go into schools and universities and stuff like that and speak to students, and their mindset is, well, we're not taking on any apprentices this year, or we don't have any opportunities at the moment. And it's kind of like, no, we need to, you're engaging them now just to try and give them an idea of what is possible in the future. You're nurturing a talent pipeline, and that needs to start at a much earlier age. I think it's by the time children are 6 or 7 that they actually start to have a gendered view of work. So of what's possible for them, just based on if they're a little girl or a little boy, which is just crazy, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like that, I think I never knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell into this. I spoke about working on a bar, or I worked at a bungee jumping company and all these other things, and kind of landed where I was accidentally. But what we do isn't rocket science. You could teach anyone who had the required values, and you could teach them the skills.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it's true of any industry, but like, it's, for me, it's those values that are really important. And like, are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to like fail fast? And a lot of that is the stuff that you can't necessarily teach. So you're almost looking for people who haven't been, they don't need to have been molded in a certain way.
Yeah.
Great if you've been to university and you've had that exposure of 3 years of being able to play with cameras and learn how to do something. But also great if you're fresh out of school and like you just think this is really interesting and cool, and you'll come and work really hard. And for us, I love that. I think I'm the old man at the company, but like want to tap into that younger space and have like young engineers, because you're right. Your point about the skills gap is prevalent where I am as well. And only accelerated by COVID, where half the people quit because work was horrendously difficult through that period, and either not sustainable, so they went and found more standard jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, or it was just too hard and people got burnt out and broke. And there's a huge skills gap that needs addressing, and there's plenty of work for everyone.
Yeah.
There's plenty of sport, and more of it's getting filmed every year. If someone listens to this and thinks, oh, maybe I could have a career in that, great. If you want to come and work for us, great. If you go and work somewhere else as well and you do something cool, there's loads of amazing companies around doing really fun stuff, and like, it's a really rewarding, exciting job. And I think if we can do a little bit of showing people that it can be a pathway for them, like, it's good for the industry. Like, the more people we can attract in that are talented and have their own mindset, the better. Yeah,
it's not necessarily just about your business, is it? It's that wider industry, and then again, like the wider local economy and how you contribute to developing talent throughout that whole thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those, it's a full circle thing, isn't it? Like, if we can help more companies set up in Yorkshire, if then more people start looking, oh, I could move to Yorkshire and I could work in Yorkshire, or think, I'm going to stay in Yorkshire and I'm going to work into the quality of the people that we're employing is going to naturally go up, and companies will start looking away from London, or broadcasters, governing bodies, whoever, being like, oh, you don't need to be in London, you could be in Yorkshire, we should look at Yorkshire and see if we could get a company up there. So it's all beneficial to the industry as a whole to try and like upskill people and attract people into the industry, whether they stay with us or not. Hopefully, if you're brilliant, you'd stay with us.
Yeah.
And you'd never want to leave, but you'd certainly want to make sure they're good enough to leave if they did.
So what exciting stuff is Tel working on right now?
We right now, as in today, are in Brunei doing some big screen presentation on the start of the season out in Southeast Asian football.
Cool.
And then football's back in Southeast Asia, football's back in England as well. So we start our sort of regular football work, whether that's with some social media, people filming behind the scenes, whether it's with football clubs in the UK doing the big screens. And then we're out and about actively trying to win sort of additional work. We're talking to lots of people about tender opportunities and big contracts. But away from that sort of day-to-day stuff, we're doing some really exciting research and development stuff.
Okay.
So we've got a guy back in our warehouse who's just designed a camera that can be remote controlled operated, that can go on the back of a bike, that, you know, means that you no longer need to have a rider on the back of a bike filming a cycling race or a triathlon or something.
Okay.
Which is opening doors to being able to do more dangerous races. You know, there's things like gravel races where no one wants to film on the back of the bike because if it crashes, you fall off. And we're able to remotely control that. So we're going through the final stages with things like that. But we're going through quite a few research and development things of ways that we can streamline workflows, that we can bring in new ways and new approaches to old-fashioned problems.
Yeah.
And I hate to say AI.
Do you know,
it's such a bad buzzword.
Honestly, today we're doing 6, so you're number 5 today that we're recording with, and everybody has gone, oh, and I hate to mention AI, but I think everyone's fatigued with the word, aren't they?
I think it's been bandied around as a buzzword for so many things. You know, I've sat through so many things of people being like, this is AI, and it's like, which part of that's AI?
Yeah.
Because I don't understand. And
No.
I'm not the most technical person in the world, but I'm pretty good, and I have no idea.
It's so insightful to learn about, you know, how dedicated you are to R&D.
Ultimately, what we do isn't life or death.
Yeah.
We're filming sports matches.
Yeah.
Like
High pressure, but not life or death.
high pressure and very important, and there's a lot of money in sponsorship and in sports rights and contracts, and there's high value stuff, but like it's a lovely thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Like if you'd have told me as a sports mad 12-year-old that I'd make a career out of sitting pitch side watching sport, I would have blown my mind.
Yeah.
But you can, and it's, you know, everyone who's in it's very lucky, but